All right, Stephen Talent here, Worldwide Vice President of Service Provider here at Stellar Cyber. I am stoked to have Michael Crean, President and Leader of Solutions Granted, joining me today on this podcast. So we're looking forward to discussing some of the opportunities that exist out there and the challenges facing businesses trying to secure themselves and the increased reliance upon security service providers to fill the cybersecurity skills gap and to help secure businesses. I think that the environment is challenging out there, and many service providers are really looking to secure their customers' environments, and I think that has also created some confusion and some pressure around MSPs. Really calling themselves managed security service providers, are looking to move towards a security service provider play, but lacking some of the critical requirements to be able to do so. And as we see more businesses looking to service providers to outsource, security functionality, I look forward to hearing, Michael, your perspective on the market out there and the requirements. I think that and the challenges facing service providers that are looking to provide security services to customers that are badly in need of this environment. So, Michael, thank you for joining us today. Really stoked to have you to join us today on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, sir. Looking forward to it.
Excellent. So, I think one of the things that we find out there, right, is that service providers are being asked by more of their customers to provide security services. Many of them are trying to move heavily with the market from that perspective. But I also see that many may not be prepared to actually deliver security services out there today. I think what we find also is that there's confusion as to what is an MSP versus a managed security service provider, or MSSP. Are you seeing some of the similar confusion in the market from that perspective?
Yeah, seeing a ton of it out there, and I will even say that some of it seems to be driven from the manufacturers. We're seeing a lot of manufacturers saying that, hey, I'm giving you all of these great tools, Mr. MSP or Miss MSP, and so now you're a security services provider. And I don't believe that that's even close to the case that anybody should be thinking just because you picked up a couple tools, that you should step into that place and add that extra S to your name and just claim it as so.
Yeah, I think that many of the MSPs that we've worked with in the past are providing management of certain aspects of the security threat landscape, if you will, endpoints heavily, right? So we see a lot of MSPs that are managing endpoint security, and then therefore call themselves a managed security service provider. And their goal is really to help secure their customers. So they're not doing this for disingenuous purposes, right? I think that they're trying to answer the demand that their customers are asking for around security services. But I think it would probably be helpful for us to quantify what is a managed security service provider, right? I think it would be good for us to sort of settle on a description, if we will. If we can come to an agreement on what that is, I think that would be valuable. So what would you consider to be a managed security service provider, and what differentiates a managed security service provider from a managed service provider, an IT as a service outfit?
So I think there's one big differentiating factor. And again, this is Michael Crean's point of view. Everybody may not agree with this. Some of you may, some of you may not. But I truly believe that if you're going to be an MSSP, if you're really going to be delivering managed security services, just looking at that name, it says managed, and you're talking about security. I believe you have to operate a 24/7 SOC. Now, you can do that a couple different ways. One, you could build your own and you could actually staff it and do it yourself, or you could just partner with somebody. And then what you're doing is you're building collaboration, which, both paths to the top of the mountain, I believe, put you in that space where you can say, I am an MSSP, or I am offering MSSP services.
That's great. And again, I think it comes down to the fact that security services are in such high demand today that many service providers are looking to sort of rush into that space and provide capabilities. I like to take it. I think the Security Operations Center absolutely is one of the key differentiators that would help you quantify yourself as a managed security service provider. I like to actually go down into what actually is your service portfolio made up of, and if the majority of your security, the majority of the services you deliver are security services, versus IT as a service. Those are also things that would quantify you. If your business is around delivering security services, and then you combine that SOC, right? I think that's
Mhm.
another key one, right? Where many businesses that we are working with, are heavily IT as a service oriented, right? They're providing IT operations, or providing, a variety of different functions that are more around IT as a service, and then, additional services that may include some security. So I agree with you. I think that the Security Operations Center is probably the big quantifying factor of what an MSSP is. If you don't have one of those, there are ways to provide that kind of functionality for your customers. But I would say, the last analytics or analysis that I had on the cost of a security operations center, it's a huge barrier for many of the smaller organizations to be able to facilitate it. And the last numbers that I looked at were, about $2 million to stand it up, and $1 million to operate a security operations center 7 by 24 with about 16 operators. Would you think that that's,
Yeah,
are we in
it's
the
probably
realm
accurate.
of reality there from those numbers? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's the one thing that some people, and I hear this often is, you'll hear either a very young MSSP that's just starting out, or an MSP that's saying that they have a SOC. And then I immediately, the first thing I ask them is like, wow, man, that's a tough one, because I've done this myself. It's like, didn't you find it challenging to staff 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and ensuring, you have to have a minimum of 3 people on shift? And I say it's a minimum of 3, because if you only have 2 people on every shift, inevitably what happens is somebody's going to get sick, somebody's going to take a day off, somebody's going to want to have a family event of some sort, and now you're down to 1. So what are you expecting that one individual to do during their shift? To not go to the bathroom, to not eat any food, to not do anything. And so if you have at minimum 3, and I'm thinking that's the barrier to entry on every single shift, it's got to be a minimum of 3, so that way you can at least afford to lose 1 and still maintain live eyes on glass that never breaks. And that's where you see the differentiator start to come into place. And people's like, well, no, we're not really doing it 24 hours a day. And it seems to almost be, people are just assuming if you say you're operating a SOC, if you say you're an MSSP, people are automatically assuming that means that you are operating 24/7. And you can lead people astray by not telling them that you're not. Yep, I've got a SOC. And then there's all of these assumptions that come with it, which kind of muddies the water on what I believe an MSSP is or isn't.
Yeah, and I think you touched on some of the aspects of personnel and staffing, but I think also outside of the capital required to be able to stand up the capabilities, I think keeping staffing levels where you need them, and finding the operators in the security operations center. I mean, that is a real challenge. So I think you add that into the cost aspects, and it can definitely be a big barrier to entry. So let's transition into that, because I think that those challenges and those barriers to entry and security services for that are facing many of the MSSPs is really driven the growth of what we would call a master MSSP kind of scenario. And I think that when I look at our Stellar Cyber's business, probably the fastest growing of our partners are those that we would call master MSSPs. What is your definition of a master MSSP, Michael? And I'll basically render mine as well.
So I always tell people it's just the fancy way of saying that you're an MSSP for the channel. That my opinion, and because we are and have been put in this category of being a master MSSP, we're not delivering our security services directly to the end user. Yes, that's where they're going, but they are going through, ours is going through MSPs. I mean, there are some master MSSPs that work with just MSSPs, they work with VARs, they work with other entities, but for us, and how I define it, it is just how we are taking our MSSP services through our channel with our MSPs.
Gotcha. So you're not engaging directly with end customers. You're leveraging a channel partner, an MSP or value added reseller or the like, that owns that customer relationship and is reselling, if you will, your managed security services down into their customer base.
That's correct. And it's, you see it kind of being handled a couple different ways. I would say probably 80 to 90% of the MSPs that we're supporting today, they like to leverage our name. They like to tell their clients that, hey, we've decided to partner with Solutions Granted because it gives them some credibility. Because if you go out there and Google us, you can find that we've been around for a hot minute. We've been given some awards, and so it helps them justify the decision that they've made. And then there's others that like to own the entire relationship and they want the clients to feel that they're doing everything. I don't know that there's a right or a wrong, but you do have to tell that story one way or the other and not leave it open to interpretation.
Yeah, no, I think that that makes sense. So according to Joe Panettiere at MSSP Alert, what he's saying is that small MSPs are generally providing basic endpoint and data protection services, but they're increasingly leaning on full-blown pure play MSSPs to deliver threat detection, response, SOC, and other advanced services. So that was an analysis that Joe did, looking at the market last year, and that has only grown this year. Would you say that your business has grown as a result of sort of your business practice of being a master MSSP for the channel?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in every market space that we're in, whether it's a specific vertical that we're targeting with MSPs or there's a peer mentoring group out there, all across the board, we have seen significant growth this year. And I think it's just people are starting to realize that they can be incredibly good at what they do. They don't have to be good at everything, but you do have to have these strong relationships with people so that you can give your clients more of the answer of yes, they're looking for.
Yeah. So you can do anything, but just not everything, right? I think
Yep.
that's probably what many of the channel partners out there are noticing. So in our mind, we see the master MSSP, everything that you said, right? But we see the master MSSP is really allowing the MSP and VARs, the channel, if you will, to offer advanced security services to their customer base without the SOC staffing, financing, and support of the security technology for the most part. Would you say that would be accurate?
100% true. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
it's
great.
it's like the perfect marriage, if you will. It's that match made in heaven where, you know, I think if you kind of maybe take the analogy of looking at doctors, where every heart surgeon is a doctor, but not every doctor is a heart surgeon. We kind of almost look at this MSSP as being a heart surgeon. We're very specialized in what we're doing, and we're not focused on everything, but we're focused on just those things that can yield the highest results in that threat hunting or that security service that stops the threat actor from taking too much damage, if any at all.
Yeah, right. No, and it's an enormous market out there. So if we look at really the driving force, let's just look at the United States. From a global perspective, the United States is constituted. I would say the economy of the United States is really driven by the small and medium business for the most part,
Mhm.
and that MSP community out there that is really providing the support to that massive engine for our GDP as a country. So that's where I think we see this recurrent demand to provide security down into that SMB, but the inability of any major organization to actually touch all those SMBs and provide security around those SMBs. So I think the master MSSP concept really creates an ability for a better operationalization of cybersecurity for that SMB space. So for us, we see the master MSSP as really a critically important part of the global economy, or part of the economy here in the U.S. around securing a very vulnerable iteration. And I remember having been in an SMB, and we always thought, hey, look, nobody's coming after us. We make this, and we got 30 people in this shop, so nobody's going to be making themselves rich if they were able to hack into our space. But the fact of the matter is that you can pretty easily hold small businesses for ransom and have a major impact on the ability for the country to continue to drive its growth and revenue and in business, right? So I would say, let me ask you, just from the perspective of the MSPs that you're serving, what do you think are the biggest challenges that they're facing in this this iteration?
I mean, I think one of the biggest challenges is that their customers are asking them for everything. they're not looking for them to be subject matter experts on just one thing. They want them to give them the answer to everything, whether that is, hey, I need a new phone system, or, I'm thinking about outsourcing copy and print, or, should I make this migration to the cloud? Should I go complete SaaS? Should I get rid of my infrastructure? And then you start to layer compliance on top of that, which obviously been around. But now the insurance companies have gotten a lot smarter. The actuaries had no idea what they were insuring when they started offering cyber insurance, and the insurance companies have just been getting it handed to them. So now here's another challenge that the MSPs are facing, because the insurance companies are coming back to all of their clients and saying, hey, here's this document, fill this out. And you may understand all of the acronyms and you may understand what they're asking, but sometimes answering it in the right way, sometimes less is more. And, you figure, well, I'm just going to go ahead and answer yes to this, or I'm just going to answer no to this. And if you stop thinking about it from just your point of view and you're collaborating with somebody that really understands the security questionnaire, that really can give a more, maybe not as necessarily direct, but something that still answers the question in a very affirmative way that keeps the client insured and maybe helps get them a reduction. I tell MSPs all the time, just because you're using a tool for one purpose doesn't mean it can't be used for something else. And that something else could actually help your client when they're going through some of these audits and questionnaires.
Yeah, so basically the MSPs are asked, basically being expected to be sort of an IT and security generalist to be able to provide answers and operational capabilities for businesses out there that are turning to them as trusted resources to answer some of the business challenges facing them vis-a-vis technology and cybersecurity.
I don't even know that they're being looked at to be generalists anymore. I think that they're the SMB market space that a lot of these MSPs that are servicing, they're expecting them to be subject matter experts. They really want them to have the answer for everything. And you either have super expensive payroll where you've got some highly, highly paid individuals that really are subject matter experts in all of these things that they're offering to their clients, or you're going to do it through collaboration.
Yeah, agreed. And, I got a softball for you. I mean, we're, as I mentioned, our fastest growing partners are master MSSPs. They're really going down there and supporting that community of MSPs and VARs that are trying to say yes to security services for their customers. Why do you think, outside of reality, why do you think the demand for master MSSP services is growing?
Well, one, I guess there's a huge deficit on talent out there today. And the talent is getting more and more expensive. I mean, we just lost one the other day. We had this amazing guy who was part of our purple team. I mean, really loved this guy that was working for us. But a large organization, when I say large, and I'm talking a Fortune 500, comes in and offers him tens of thousands of dollars more than I can afford to pay him. And so if that's happening to me, and I've got a little bit more money to spend on these security analysts or these threat hunters, or somebody that I'm putting in my SOC, well, if that's happening to me, then how much quicker does it happen when it moves downstream and you're used to paying an engineer or technician a certain amount of money, but then you're starting to see all of these security people getting paid exponentially more. So, I mean, I think that's one reason that it's happening. And the other reason is that, the same reason you go to a specialist for anything. It's because you have a need, desire, and want to have this particular skill taken care of. And that's what we can do. We can take care of that skill for MSPs.
Yeah, so it boils down to a cyber skills gap and a predatory, hiring kind of environment for those that actually have those skills, right? I think the last
LinkedIn is my damn enemy at the moment. Like, I'm so tired of people getting poached on LinkedIn. Like, employees that tell you they're happy, tell you that I wasn't even looking for a job and so hit me up. I mean, it's happened to me like twice in the last 60 days where, I mean, massive, large organizations have come in and poached my employees, and like, well, I'm either training them really well, or somehow I'm just catching somebody's radar and they're now looking at me to figure out where they're going to farm for their next.
I think you're not serving enough ice cream, Michael. Yeah. So I think they're just tip for you. Ice cream is big for employee retention. So no, thank you.
I thought it was Red Bull and caffeine. It's not that anymore. Right. It's ice cream now.
Monster energy drinks and IV, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's great stuff. And we think there's just an enormous opportunity to actually meet the demand out there, especially with partners such as yourself that are able to, provide security services and do so in a way that's friendly to the channel. I think what we also are noticing is that you mentioned earlier is more and more security vendors are actually out there competing with channel partners and offering managed services down into end customers and really going around the partner to kind of get to their customer base. So I think that is a continued theme, but it also is an indication of the market potential and the market opportunity that exists for security services delivery into businesses of all sizes. If you see, the multi-billion-dollar security vendors working to try to get down to that, to get down to operationalizing different aspects of it. So I would say,
even say, like, taking that a step further, think about where the RMM and PSA providers, where are they making their investments and what acquisitions have they been making? I mean, the majority of the acquisitions that they're making are in the security space at the moment. So they seem to have their eyes set on this idea of that, well, if we have all of these MSPs buying that tool from us, well, then let's offer them security technology. Let's offer them services as well. And that's the clear indicator that that's a hot space.
Yeah, so let's boil this down to brass tacks, right? I'm an MSP. I've got a bunch of customers out there. I want to say yes to security. For me, it's a trust situation, right? And it's also an income situation, right, or a revenue situation. So obviously, I think that what you've done a great job of is developing trust, right? Your partners trust you. You're a trustworthy operator. It's a small space out there, so there's no covering up over a lack of integrity in operations. So you've developed obviously a reputation of trustworthiness in that space around the partners. But at the end of the day, how do you compensate your partners downstream? I'm an MSP. I've got a bunch of customers that I need to provide security to. How do you take care of me as a business owner and operator of a managed security service provider if I'm engaging and bringing you into to opportunities to provide security services for my customers?
So one thing that we've done is we've tried to remove ourselves from that end customer. And the best way that we could do that is making sure that the MSP understands that's their relationship, that's their opportunity, that's going to be their sale to make. So, we never engage with that end user. The only way we engage or talk, even in the middle of an event or a compromise or something that's happening, the MSP has to be involved with us. And sometimes that's a sticking point for some MSPs because they don't want to be involved. They don't want the call in the middle of the night. They want the money. They want the profit that comes from it, but they don't want to do any of the work. Now, I will say that's a smaller subset of what we're seeing. Probably 5 years ago, that was a huge ask. It was probably 50-50. Well, I don't want to take the call. Now MSPs are understanding that they can continue to provide value because there are things that are going to happen in environments occasionally that we're seeing. We see a potential data exfiltration. Well, we don't know that maybe that isn't some new backup that you put in place, that they're sending a whole bunch of data to the cloud somewhere. We can think and we can probably get close to it, but we still want to have a conversation with somebody. And if you're having that conversation with the end user and they don't know the tools that are in place or the technologies that are being used, well, then it fails. So we make sure that what we're selling and what we're providing and the services that we're offering to the MSPs, that we discount it in such a way that we leave them an incredible amount of margin that they can mark it up and they can make a hefty margin on it if they're doing it right and offering it to them and staying in the game with us. And that's important.
I tell you what, that's key, right? So what I heard, was margin, and I maintain the ownership of the relationship, and I think that as an MSP, that's critically important to considering a master MSSP, because that's the most important thing for an MSP is its customer base, right? And I think that's critically important. So. I think this is a great dialogue. We value you as a partner. We see how much good you're doing out there for the space generally. And so we're really stoked to call you a partner and think that you are one of the finest master MSSPs out there in the space today. So,
well, I appreciate that.
For this call, yeah.
It definitely takes a team to get it done.
Send me my ice cream, Michael.
Yeah. You want some Dippin' Dots, or you want
my
some real
bourbon?
Ice cream?
Yeah, bourbon flavored ice cream. Yes, good stuff.
Yeah.
All right, rock and roll.